Welcome back. In this video, you'll understand WSDL in detail, and I'll show you how to write your own WSDL. What are the various parts in WSDL? So, a WSDL document describes a web service using these major elements. There are other elements also, but these are the major elements. First one is types. Under types tag, we define our schema. Then under message tag, we define our input message and output messages. We describe about input and output messages. And under port type, we define the operations. That means port type is equivalent to interface. And already you might be knowing now, binding talks about what is a communication protocol used as well as a messaging protocol. These are the four parts of a WSDL document. Root tag of a WSDL document is definitions, and it contains these tags. Let us try to write our own WSDL. Parallelly, I will explain you about WSDL. Now, what I want to do is right now, this is the interface which you have used earlier. I want to write a WSDL file which describes this interface. Forget about the annotations as of now. I want to write a WSDL which describes this interface without this remote. So, there are two methods. First of all, let me show you how to create a WSDL file. I am working on this writing WSDL start project. In SRC main resources, I will say new other WSDL file. Okay. Next, I'll give the name as stocks. Any name I can give. Next, it is asking what is the target namespace of your WSDL. Your WSDL is an XML file, right? Whatever tags you are using, they should belong to some namespace. So I am giving my own company way to learn.co.in/stocks. And whenever I am using a tag belonging to this namespace, what is the prefix which I want to use? By default, we use TNS naming, target namespace. And which protocol do you want to follow? SOAP or plain HTTP? We'll discuss about HTTP later. Right now, let us stick with SOAP protocol for messaging. And we'll discuss about RPC bindings later. Right now I am selecting document literal binding. What is the meaning of RPC literal and RPC encoding? We'll see during our next sessions. Finish. So see, if you see, there is some basic structure of WSDL file automatically generated. You are seeing the source mode. If you want to see this in design mode, you can click on this design. This is the design mode. So here is the endpoint URL. This is a service, and here is the endpoint URL. So by default it is something like www.example.org. I'll make it to localhost and whatever port I want, say 8080/stock service. I want this to be the endpoint URL. So I saved, and if I go to source, you can see this is the endpoint URL, whatever I give. So this represents the service, stocks service, and this is the port type. Port type name is you can write stocks port type. Just let us go back to source and check. Port type name is stocks port type. And then I'll go back to design mode. I want the operation name to be, say, update first. So once I change the name, here you can see update and update response, they have been changed. So the operation name is update, and here you are specifying input message is update and output message is update response. Now let me go back to source and check. See, this is the port type. Port type name is stocks port type. Operation name is update. The input message is update request, and output message is update response. Now Where is the message defined update request message? This is the one. So this update message contains one part. Part is equivalent to method argument. On part, and it is referencing to TNS colon update, which is defined inside the WSDL types. WSDL types is containing the schema definition. So under WSDL types, I have schema. Inside schema, there is a complex element update. There is a complex element update response. So the message is pointing to element TNS colon update inside the schema, and for response it is pointing to update response inside the schema. So coming back to design mode, that's what we see: the port type, operation, input message, output message. Input message is of type update. If I click on this arrow, it will take me to the internal here. Again I'll go to design mode. Now in design mode I am at the update operation. So update requires what? Symbol and price, is it? So inside this there is right now only one argument. I'll double click here and I'll change it as symbol of type string. I want to add one more thing called as price. I'll right click and I'll say insert after, what is it? Price. And I want the price to be double. Okay, so I'll go back to source and check. See, update element is having symbol of type string and price of type double. Right. So you configured, I'll close this visual. You configured a port type with one operation update, and this is the input message, this is a response message. And if you see response is update response. It's containing only one out. It's of type string, but update method I want it to return boolean, so I'll select boolean. Okay, I modified the update response. Message is pointing to update response in schema. Update response is having out, which is of type boolean. That's fine. And if you see, messages are defined automatically. Complex types are defined for input message and output message. Then coming to binding, there is a binding automatically generated which says SOAP with transport as HTTP. So by default SOAP plus HTTP binding is generated, and these are information about WSDL operation. The operation name which I want to expose over this binding is update, and SOAP operation is containing WSDL input, which is containing the SOAP body as literal. WSDL output is nothing but a SOAP body whose usage is literal. We'll discuss more on use equals to literal meaning next. Okay, now I want to add one more operation for this port type. I'll right click, add operation. What? Get price, is it? Get price. Automatically here get price request and get price response. So coming to here in source mode, there's a complex type get price which is taking, I'll say, symbol of type string, and get price response should give price, and it should be of type double. So I modified the get price response, and you can see the message for get price request and get price response has been automatically generated. And if you see port type, if you see the port type, stocks port type is having two operations, update and get price. But one thing you need to understand is inside the binding only one operation is there, update. See, in case of binding, whenever you are exposing a binding, you can just say what all the methods, what all operations you want to expose. In this case, in my port type, actually there are two methods, but for this binding, SOAP plus HTTP binding, for this binding I want to expose only update operations. I may want to. So whenever you add a new operation through the wizard in the design mode, understand that inside the binding operation will not be created automatically, because you may not want this operation to be exposed over this binding. If you want, what you can do, you can write an operation similar to this one. Operation name is what? Get price, is it? Get price. I'm giving the operation name as get price. And SOAP action should be unique for each operation. So earlier it was update for one of the operation. I'll say get price. You have to somehow make sure that the SOAP action is unique. That's all. So I have created a WsdL. So in WsdL, as I was telling you, there are multiple parts: WsdL types, and then messages, and then port type declaration, and then binding declaration, and then service. Right. So WsdL types contains the schema definition. This is the schema definition. WsdL types will contain the schemas, and then you have to configure or define your message types: input message, how it looks like; output message, how it looks like, and all. And then the port type, which lists all the operations available in the port type. And for each operation, what is the input message, what is the output message. Then binding tells how you want to expose this port type. See, for binding the port type, this is same as this one. So for this port type, stock codes port type, you are configuring a binding. Document style and transport is HTTP. Then I define the operations. That's all. So I am done with creating my own WsdL. So as I told you, the WsdL contains these main parts: types, message, port type, and binding. Service I am not showing, that is also there. So port type element describes the interfaces. Port type in WsdL is equivalent to interface in Java, right? So WsdL port type describes the interfaces. WsdL port type, sorry, it is spelling mistake here. Port type describes the interfaces. Port type is equivalent to interface. Port type describes the operations that can be performed. As I told you, port type can be compared to as a function library in traditional programming language. Contains operations. Port type contains operations, so it can be compared to a function library. And message element defines the data elements of operation. Each message can contain one or more parts. Parts can be compared to as parameters passed to your function. WsdL types define the schemas. This is an example of various messages. See, there is a message called as get term request, which is containing a part equivalent to method argument. Get term response contains one again, and port type is containing an operation. Operation is defining input message, how it looks like, and output message. And whenever you are defining operations, operations can be either one way or request response. That means if your operation does not return anything, then it is a one way. If your operation returns something, it is request response type. See an example of one way operation. My port type is having one operation, and this operation is having only input message. There is no output message. That means it is one way operation. This input message is, see here, it is pointing to this message, new term values. So this is an example of one way operation. Request response. See now, my operation get term is having an input message, output message. These are pointing to corresponding messages. So this is a request response operation. So I already discussed about bindings. Bindings in WsdL define the message format and protocol details. So here is an example of a binding, which says SOAP is the message protocol and transport protocol is HTTP. Don't worry, next we'll see about various other transports supported by SOAP like JMS or SMTP. Right now we are concentrating on transport as HTTP. So binding element has two attributes, name and type. So name is a binding name and type refers to the port type. Name attributes define the name of the binding and type attributes points to the port type of the binding. Port type, again here is a spelling mistake. Port type of the binding. So SOAP binding element has two attributes, style and transport. Style can be RPC or document. In this case we used document. So just coming back here in WSDL, the style, there are two types of values, document and RPC. We will be discussing about next also what is document style web service and what is RPC style web service. Right now don't worry. Here style can be either document style or RPC style. What is the meaning of actually RPC style or document style? We will see slowly. Okay. And for each operation, the corresponding SOAP action has been defined. You must also specify how the input and output are encoded. So here inside the operation we are specifying SOAP body use equals to literal. We are specifying that SOAP body should not be encoded. The other value for use is encoded. If you want the SOAP body to be encoded using some encoding techniques, then you can specify SOAP body use equals to encoded. If you are saying use equals to literal, that means the body is not encoded, it is a plain XML. That's the meaning. So in earlier versions of SOAP like SOAP 1.0 or so, the encoded also is supported. But now the SOAP does not support use equals to encoded. At least JAX WS does not support use equals to encoded. Okay. So we always use equals to literal. So this tells to the frameworks that the body is a plain XML, not encoded. Okay. So that's about the uses literal. So I showed you how to write a WSDL step by step. Now what you can do is you can open this document. This document for writing WSDL. Here I have given you steps of what to do. Okay, follow these steps and write your own WSDL. Go ahead and complete this exercise. We'll meet you in next video for the next topic.